What's up, guys? It's your boy DSanglay, and welcome back to another episode of the Don't Sleep podcast. I am here with my special guest, Blake Wynn.
Oh man, I appreciate it. Thank you. I love the name. What a
Man,
good name.
how have you been, bro?
Busy, man. I used to think, I would spend so much time making YouTube videos. I mean,
Right.
it takes so long, and for many of the years I did it, I edited myself, and I negotiated my own brand deals, and I was traveling all the time. It was a lot of work.
Right.
Jesus Christ, was that easy compared to what I'm doing now? I mean, just in terms of the time it takes, YouTube, it's very repetitive, right? Film, edit, post, film, edit, post, and then you do the email, you do the stuff in between.
Right.
What we do now, every day is so different. You're mentally stimulated from the second you wake up, the second that you decide.
I mean, but that's exciting.
You got to call it. Oh, it's totally fun.
Right?
Totally fun.
Right. So, I mean, Blake, for the people that don't know who you are, let the people know what you do, man.
Man, so I run a marketing agency in Las Vegas called Enclave and Key. We work with a couple hundred brands and handle all their marketing efforts. In addition to that, we've now just acquired the Celebrity Poker Tour, which is now a big part of my focus. I'm fortunate enough to have a fantastic team who can help build some of the visions, right? But a lot of the time, the vision will start with myself or with Brock or with Hayes, who's another co-founder.
Right.
So I'm always kind of 6 months ahead of the business. So operationally, we're taking care of what we got to take care of today. My role has a lot to do with what we've got coming up, which today is the Celebrity Poker Tour. We've got 10 events next year.
That's something that you've been really passionate about for a long time, actually.
Oh, it's so fun.
Right? You're always playing poker at the house.
We're playing poker at the house, low stakes, but and that's how it all came to be. We had just the coolest group. At first it was myself and some of the people that worked here.
Right.
And then Austin Eckler would come to the office. He'd say, "What are you doing after this? You want to go to dinner?" I said, "No, I'm got the group coming over. They're going to come play poker." "Dude, I love playing poker. Can I come?" "Sure, you can come."
That's crazy.
And then Chum Lee would start coming,
Wow.
and Ray J and his wife started coming, and all these fun people started coming. I said, "Boy, we got to start figuring out how to film this."
Right.
And snowball after snowball after snowball. 8 months later, we went from playing $50 total buy-in, playing for like 25 cents a hand with Austin Eckler and this group, to we already pulled off one of the poker tournaments. It was the most watched poker tournament of all time in August. And now we've got 10 of them coming up next year.
That's crazy.
Totally fun. Super
That's
fun.
crazy. So from literally nothing, it came into
It was
that.
an accidental idea. Just as starting a YouTube, truthfully, was
Right.
an accidental idea.
Right.
I never wanted to be an influencer, and I never really thought growing a YouTube was something that I was going to do. Once I did it, I went 110% into it, but it was I think those are the best things. You do something out of just wanting to see an idea through that you're passionate about, and as it turns out, if you see it through successfully, it could be way bigger than you initially anticipated.
Exactly.
And you could make money off it, and you could live, and you could do all those different things. But I've been very lucky so far in my life. This is just another thing that started from a place of passion, and now we're figuring out how to make it part of the business.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I hope it does very, very well for you.
I appreciate it. We're excited, and you know what? I look at it like we got nothing to lose, but everything to gain. I think right now, poker's not really it's not really a sport. You know what I mean? Poker's a card game that you play in a
But it's
casino.
something very, very popular that a lot of people like, actually.
A lot of people love it, and it could be entertaining. It isn't, but it could be. The nature of poker is that, but you and I are going to have a new conflict where you can win or I can win every 35 to 90 seconds. We're going to have a conflict.
Right.
So conflict is something that's very powerful in entertainment, right? That's reality TV shows, NFL, et cetera, et cetera. Conflict, even when the news has big ratings because of Trump or something like that, conflict brings the viewership.
Exactly.
Now, the problem with poker is that it's the perfect thing in the context of conflict, but the people who play it oftentimes are not larger than life personalities.
Yeah.
Hoodie, sunglasses, earphones.
very
And I don't blame them. They're very low key because they're doing a lot. They're doing calculations. They've studied psychology. I mean, they've got a million computations running through their brain. They don't have time to make noise and rile you up or anything like that.
Right.
But what if they weren't doing those computations, and what if they could rile you up? What if you took personalities that were larger than life, you gave them this conflict that occurs every 90 seconds, and then you film it and you broadcast it. That's our hypothesis.
Crazy.
So I think I hope it works, of course, but it already worked the first time we did it, and I think it'll just get bigger and bigger and bigger. I think it'll be something people watch for fun.
Right.
We've got a betting partner, so you'll be able to bet on these tournaments.
Wow.
So it's gonna be totally fun for people that are at home, like watching, and the people that are there to play, and it'd be a cool thing.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
I'm happy for you though.
I appreciate it, man.
But since you've been talking about YouTube, that was your little intro. I got a surprise for you. I got to show you something, man.
Let's see it.
So I remember I went to your house a couple.
Oh,
months
I know the box.
A couple years ago, actually.
Yeah.
Right, and I was like, I need one of those. So, got to show you this one. I think I told you to bring yours too, right?
I have mine. It doesn't look like yours.
Check that out. Bro.
Wow. Wow, this looks a lot nicer than mine.
Man.
This is pretty. You hang this in a nice house. I have mine hanging on this really small wall in the house because it doesn't match the house.
I remember that. Was it still in the same spot?
Actually, I just bought a new house in September, so I moved. But it's in a very similar kind of spot on a very small wall in kind of my man
I think
cave.
I still
This is
have
gorgeous.
that clip. I was like, I need one of these. I'm gonna make a little clip of it. I'm gonna show.
And I think what I said to you back then was something along the lines of there was going to be no doubt that you'd get it.
Yeah, but it was crazy because I literally thought that year I was gonna reach 100K, right? But I didn't. Like I think when I did that YouTube video, I think I was at like 5,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
And then
That is about exactly right.
And then from there, it was just, I stayed at 5,000 for so long until I started posting short form videos. And then from that short form, I just kept.
The YouTube Shorts is what did it.
Yeah, and I was kind of getting discouraged. I was like, I don't think this is going to work.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm just going to focus on TikTok. I'm going to focus on, Instagram.
Well, you had such a larger following on all the other platforms,
right,
I remember.
Right.
Yeah.
But the thing that actually made me push harder on YouTube was that my TikTok got banned twice. So it got temporarily banned and then it got permanently banned.
Whoa.
And then I finally got it back like 6 months later. But during that 6 month grace period, I was like, you know what, I'm going to focus on YouTube because YouTube has been here the longest.
Yeah. Well, and the value of an audience on YouTube is far superior to the audience on any other platform.
No doubt.
Right? Like
No doubt.
you having 100,000, assuming they're active, right?
Mm-hmm.
100,000 subscribers versus 100,000 TikTok followers is like
crazy.
It's like saying that like you got a car, except this guy's got a Porsche.
Right.
And yours breaks down every time.
Right.
That's how I'd compare 100,000 subs to 100,000 on TikTok.
Exactly.
100,000 on TikTok, maybe you could do something with it, but 100,000 on YouTube, I mean, and granted, every year that goes by, the amount of followers necessary to like really kind of be a name grows.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like you think about what 5,000 subscribers meant in 2018 or 19 versus what it means today. Night and day. 5,000, 2018, 19, if you were still in high school back then, people would have been like, oh my God, we got this kid that we go to high school with that's a YouTuber.
famous, yeah.
Nowadays, you got 5,000, like it's like
it's nothing.
you posted one short that maybe got a little bit viral, and next thing you know, right, they got 5,000, you only have one upload.
Exactly.
You don't even need to do anything to get to 5,000 sometimes now.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think timing was right for the sneaker YouTube train, but
Man.
I tell you, I'm so grateful for when I did it, and I'm so grateful for when I stopped.
Yeah.
I have a lot of respect for people like you who have stayed doing it, because I think about it, and it's like there's so much creativity that was missing from that space. I think you've injected some into it because you came in it from a different angle. You had the reselling business. You were the same age as the demo, so you had all these kind of neat touch points that not everybody else had. But I mean, in 2019, it was the same thing. Everyone was doing the vlog about the sneaker shopping and then spending $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a video. What value to provide anybody?
Yeah.
That was the thing that always kind of bothered me deep down. Is I was like, I might be entertaining people for a couple minutes, but I'm not providing real value. I'm not doing what Gary Vee's doing. I'm not saying that's the answer to content, right? But even what you're doing now, right? You had another cool way that you've kind of reinvented yourself and added more to your content.
Exactly.
I was like, man, right to your point. Think about how hard it was to get 100,000 to reinvent and do it again and again and again.
Again, yeah, exactly.
I was the idea that I was like, oh shit, I gotta find a different business. I don't know if I have a couple more of these in me.
Right.
Took everything I had to do the stuff I did.
But even when you were in YouTube, man, like you were grinding though. Like you were grinding. I think
took every ounce of effort that I had.
You got to like 400, right? 400.
Yeah, I think
subscribers or something like that, right?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I passed 400. I couldn't tell you what my all-time peak was. I would guess it was something in the like 430 range. I think is where it topped out before I started losing because I didn't post. Right. I think I have I couldn't even tell you 300 something now, but I haven't posted in 5 years. You know,
right.
Different.
But you know, there's like, I feel like there's a lot of people in the sneaker YouTube space or sneaker content space that want to do it like as a full-time living. You know what I mean? And I feel like I feel like they don't think about the monetary, you know, aspects that could come from it, right? They just do it out of passion. You know what I mean? So for the people that are doing it just for the passion, what is your advice for them?
If you stop being passionate about it, you should quit. Because I don't think, here's why I say it's not a full-time career for anybody. Because you use the word career, you didn't say job.
Right.
Jobs can last 2 months, 2 years.
A week.
A week, right.
Right.
You can go in and out of jobs, right? So fine, you want to treat it as a job, treat it as a job. If you want to treat it as a career, you got to accomplish something that I don't think anybody's going to accomplish in the context of sneakers. Let me put it this way. The biggest names ever throughout time and history, right? Earliest, right? You'd have the George Keels and the Vlads who had Sneaker Watch, right? Then you kind of move to like Kais or, you know, what you and I did or Giancarlo, any of these names, and I'm not knocking any of them.
Right.
But if they think that they can be making YouTube videos about sneakers when they're 58 years old, they are, I will bet almost anything that they're wrong about that. And they would say the same thing. That's, you know, I'm not trying to bash them. I'm just saying, if you're doing it out of passion, do it out of passion. But as soon as it's no longer your passion, don't feel bad and walk away. Yeah. I walked away. I had posted 2 more videos after my most watched video ever, and that was when I quit. Wow. Because I didn't quit out of like, oh, I can't do this. Oh, no one wants to watch this. I didn't have the passion for it anymore. I wasn't into collecting shoes. I wasn't into the hunt. I had just gotten to college, so now I kind of had a new set of passions. I had just moved across the country by myself at 18 years old. Wow. So I was getting these new world experiences. I said, you know what? Maybe spending the 9 or 10 hours a day that it takes to make this work isn't really how I want to spend my day anymore. I'm going to try for 3 days to just not do it. And I was hooked on those 3 days. I felt like I had freedom. I said, you know what? That's how I know that I'm done. Because I feel free not doing it. For 2.5, 3 years when I was doing it every day, and to your point, I was grinding all that stuff, I felt free because I was doing it. Right? When I was 16 years old, or no, I was 17 years old when I did that tour. You know, I went around the country, I did meet and greets, met 500, 600, 700 people. More than the sneaker cons. I put on my own tour. I did pop-up shops. It was a whole thing. Oh, wow. In the summer of 17. That was my summer between my junior and senior year of high school. So you talk about freedom, you got kids that are doing nothing with themselves. You got kids who go and, you know, maybe they work for their parents and stuff. I was traveling the world, meeting people who were excited to meet me, and I was getting to say thank you because their support meant so much. And I mean, that was freedom. Freedom isn't feeling obligated to do this. The second you feel obligated, just walk away from it would be my honest take on it. The other thing I'd say is when you look at people like Giancarlo and Kais and even someone like yourself who's, you know, made money doing this and stuff like that, I don't think the same opportunity exists anymore. So if you really are passionate about it, go for it. But if you're passionate about it because you also think that it could be a means to an end for you, I don't know that I agree with that anymore. It's so saturated nowadays.
It is.
The only way I'd say that that's true is if you figure out how to reinvent the wheel. Right. I felt like there was an element of my content when I was first doing it in 16 or 17 that I felt like reinvented the wheel. I looked at the content landscape and I saw what Nice Kicks and Sneaker Watch did where they went and showed collections. Kais back then was doing unboxings of early shoes, as was Tony D2 Wild, as was Bullet. The only one who I would say was sort of doing what I was doing at the time was Blake Linder. And sort of Kais with his second channel, which became his main channel because it did so much better, called Crew TV. Crew Kicks was his main channel, where he shouted me out, and that was how I first got my start. But Crew TV was his vlog channel. It was kind of the secondary thing that he sort of just did because he liked making the content. I thought, Casey Neistat is the guy. Jake Paul and Logan came after. They didn't even really do YouTube in 15, 16 when I started. It was Casey Neistat was just the G of all G's on YouTube. I said, but what if you took Casey Neistat's content style and you applied that to sneakers and you really just made vlogs that revolved around this kind of sneaker community? So that was what I did. And I felt like I had a new spin for it. Everyone ended up doing that very quickly. I'm not going to take credit for starting that idea or anything. I'm just telling you how I looked at it. I looked at it like I was bringing something to the table that hadn't really been brought yet. I also thought all these other YouTubers are a lot older than me, but all the people that watch them are my age. I'll be like the voice of the demographic, if that makes sense. And people will relate to me right? There's only so much relating you can do to someone who's 30 when you're 14. But can you relate to a 16-year-old when you're 14? Right, I would be on my videos saying, well, guys, I'm sorry, it's a 5-minute video instead of a 10. I've got a big essay I got to write. I used to say that kind of shit in my videos. I meant it. I can't spend 10 hours today. I got to spend 3 hours on a paper about Catcher in the Rye. Or something like that in English class. Because I went to a very challenging school, but that's a separate point. So anyway, that'd be my biggest thing, is I'd say, if you got an idea of how to reinvent it, go for it. If you really love it, do it. But if you think this is a job, or specifically if you think this is a career, I would say no.
Yeah. Man, so, going back to that, the tour that you did.
Yeah.
Right? How did you come up with that idea, and how did you, what was your idea behind that whole thing?
Well, I tell you, it similar to the poker stuff I mentioned, and even just the YouTube in general, it's all very fitting. All these things, I think I've been lucky in life that all these things have sort of transpired in a way that was better than the way that I thought about it in my head. In my head, I thought to myself, this is the only chapter of my life, and I knew it was a chapter, and I knew I was going to stop relatively around the time that I was graduating from high school. So I knew I had about a year left. I'd been doing it for about a year and a half, and I thought, I had so much fun meeting people. That was like by far my favorite part.
It is one of mine too.
It's by far the coolest. Having some of those interactions. I mean, some of the people that I met work here, went on to do cool things. Like one of my closest friends is on the Kansas City Royals. His name's MJ Melendez. He was a 16-year-old fan. He's the same age as me. We connected on Twitter because he messaged me about snooze, and he went on to be a star for the Kansas City Royals. He's one of my close friends. We play poker together, all that stuff. But I made real relationships with so much of my audience. This kid, Grant Lopez from my meet and greet in Boston, he was second in line. He waited 13 hours at my pop-up shop. And this is not a sneaker con or something. This is literally a storefront no bigger than the office we're sitting in right now that I just stood inside of and, would give away Crep Protect and sign things or take photos and just have those interactions and make a vlog and everything. Kid was 13 years old. He became the personal assistant of the Kid Leroy. And so every time I'm in LA, I see him, and he invited me out to the Kid Leroy's 18th birthday party, all this wild stuff. But it's just a 13-year-old kid that I connected with. Yeah. You know what I mean? Someone like you, right? Like long-time friendships. like I said, I haven't posted a video in 5 years. But you and I are sitting here. We wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for those days.
Right.
So you asked me about the tour. I thought, people aren't going to know it, but this is going to kind of be a farewell tour, which was a weird thing to say, right? Like you think about farewell tour, you think about Elton John, who did this shit for 50 years. I had been doing this for 14 months, but I was like,
that's crazy.
But I know I'm going to be done. And I felt like I felt like I just had such a genuine connection with my audience. It wasn't the biggest thing in the world. When I went on tour, I had 198,000 subscribers the day I started my tour.
Wow.
So I didn't have that big of an audience, but it was like a cult audience. I was also getting 100,000 views a day on my videos and stuff like that. It was really engaged.
I see.
I said, what do you guys think of me going on tour? The first 2 hours that video was up, I'll never forget it. 5,800 comments came in with cities. I said, holy shit.
Dang.
They would like to meet me. And I'd like to say thank you to them for their support. And I thought it'd be a cool way to spend my summer. That my mom will have to let me travel because I'm going to be doing it for work and everything. So I booked it. And the first one was in Milwaukee. And over 1,000 people were there. The police shut down Water Street. And I had 199,000 subscribers. I was 17 years old. And the confidence, what the people who supported me on YouTube did for the trajectory of my life, they'll never understand. And I knew that then. So that's why I was so grateful. It wasn't thank you for like pressing subscribe. It was like you armored me at 17 years old with the confidence to know that if I set my mind to something, I can achieve it.
Yeah.
My business plan and my goal was to get that 100,000 subscriber plaque. I got it in 7 months. Imagine being 16 years old and getting that level of confidence added to yourself. So I was so grateful, and to this day, I'm still so grateful for those people who enabled that for me. I was like, I want to go say thank you. And if they actually want to meet me or take photos, stuff like that, I don't want a single one of them to not get that experience. Exactly. If they don't want it, they don't have to have it. But if they want it, I want to bring it to their front door. So Milwaukee, to Cleveland, to Detroit, to Boston, to Jersey, to New York, to Fort Lauderdale, Phoenix, Dallas, Houston, Los Angeles, Portland, Seattle, Toronto, and then Glasgow in the United Kingdom. That was the tour. I can still tell you to this day, and it was in that exact order, and it was just the most fun. It was so cool. The first ever client of Enclave and Key is the father of someone that I met at that Toronto SneakerCon.
Wow.
So it's one of those things where it's like I could never have told you what everything would turn into, but I just loved the idea of living for the sake of the story that I was going to get to tell. To this day, I live for this story. I was in New York this past Friday. I was going to fly home, and I was like, you know what? I got a free weekend. What the heck's going on? And I went to Frankfurt, Germany, to go to the Chiefs-Dolphins game, because I thought what a cool experience that will be. The first ever NFL game in Frankfurt, Germany. I want to go be there. So I went to Germany for 2 days. I'm already back. I'm jet lagged. I'm tired right now. But I went only for the sake of the stories. And I could tell you 20 of them, right? I'm not going to, because I know it's not what your audience is interested in. But to that point, like, that was how I looked at the tour. I looked at it like, this will create memories that I'll get to cherish for the rest of my life, that other people will possibly get to cherish for the rest of their lives, or at least for that particular moment. I mean, I had kids that would come to the tour in their graduation attire, because the tour started in early June. I remember signing a couple of kids, what do you call them? Like the hats you wear, the graduation cap, yeah. Right, I mean, that kid might think it's a little funny that he had a YouTuber sign it who doesn't do it anymore, but he'll also remember that experience the rest of his life. Yeah. That was what it was all about for me, honestly.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
You know, because I'm at a point in my life right now where I'm like, okay, I'm going hard on the content, I'm going hard on the business. It's like, you know, like, what else can I do? Like, what else should I do?
What do you want to do?
You know, and to be honest with you, I don't know yet. You know, and I feel like I got to find something that I'm like, another thing that I'm more happy doing, you know, and I don't know what that is yet, but you know,
and that's all right. But if you know that this isn't the thing, then I would just be looking.
Right.
You know what I mean?
No, it's not like this is not the thing. It's just like, what else can I do in this space? Like, for example, like your tour.
Yeah.
Maybe I can, you know, I'm thinking about doing something like that now too.
Are you?
Like, I'm, you know, to be honest.
Well,
with you,
I'll tell you, you gotta plan it for a few months. You gotta promote the heck out of it.
Yeah, because like
you gotta have a little bit of staff to help you with it. It's,
right.
You know, it's not as simple as I maybe made it sound.
Right.
But you can do it, right? That was what I also thought was so cool, right? Like, what I'm talking about wasn't rocket science. Like, right? Like, of course you could pull it off. Like, I pulled it off. I was 17. Like, you know what I mean? It's not like you can't do it. But if you're
a lot of things that go with it.
There's a lot of things that go with it, but there's a lot that you could do with it. Like, if I could go back and do it again, I would do it way different. I was in it. It was one day after the other, not counting the international ones. Those were a little more spaced out. But like Milwaukee was June 10th, Cleveland the 11th, Detroit the 12th. So it was literally red eye or quick hour flight if it was close. Fly in, get there, put stuff down, go set up pop-up, do pop-up, go to airport, sit there, edit, fly to next city, quick crash, wake up, set up, right? So I didn't get to really take in the cities. I didn't really get to have business meetings at them or other interaction. You know, I didn't get to collaborate with some of the local influencers that were there unless they came to the pop-up shop, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't really maximize on it in the context of like, all right, I'm already in Boston, right? Rich the Kid used to be out there, who I knew back then. he was a lot smaller. In Cleveland, I knew Joe Hayden, right? But I didn't have time to like see these people, and I could have made content with them. There's a lot that I do different, right? Because you're already there, you're already pushing that hard, right? You don't. The only person that I think it was like, wow, I'm tired, is me, right? Everybody else, even if they waited in line a long time, that was their day, right? If they were a Milwaukee person and they waited 12 hours, that's a tough day. And they went home and their life went on. I went, did the exact same thing the next day, and did that for 30 days straight.
You didn't get no sleep.
Very little sleep. Well, I also didn't miss a single upload, and I was editing myself. And
wow, you had no editor.
Then I didn't. After the tour, I got an editor, because it kind of burnt me out. That's the thing too, man. Like, right, like you can only push yourself so far before you reach burnout, and there's no psychology and there's no amount of passion in the world that's going to block you from that.
Right.
So you got to be really intentional. I even, when I was in New York, I was on the road the last 2 weeks for work. I was in LA, and then I was in Philly, and then I was in New York, and it was a lot. Shit, I'm tired. Like, I'm literally tired. I'm like, I could go home and I'll rest up there, or I could go to Frankfurt and I could just totally unwind in a new world of experience. Like, I've never been to Germany, like, see something totally new. And I was like, I need that for myself for these 2 days. I missed some time in the office on Monday flying home, right? There needs to be some give and take. Because I also worked through my last Saturday and Sunday for the last 9 or 10 weekends. You know what I mean? So at some point, you got to let yourself reset. I never used to do that with YouTube. I thought I was soft for resetting, and also too, YouTube is a momentum game. You take 1 day off when you're a daily uploader, you like unset 5 weeks of work. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Right? The audience doesn't realize how demanding they feel to the creators that they're a fan of. But I liked it. You know what I mean? Like as I'm saying these things now, I'm just saying them in a way that makes sense as I explain it to the audience. But in the time, the blood wouldn't have flown through my arms correctly if I wasn't posting a video that day.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So it was a difference. I remember like going into exams in school and doing the math on there literally is a website called Roger Hub. I will remember this forever. There's a website called Roger Hub. You could put in the grade that you had, the weighting of the assignment or the test or whatever you had coming up, and it would tell you, if you get this, your grade's going to drop to this. If you get this, your grade's going to drop to this. So I would calculate out the lowest grade I needed for an exam that I knew required a lot of studying. If I knew I had a big history test coming up, but I had some homework assignments and a paper and stuff like that took a lot less time, I'd grind those things and try to get 100%. So I could have a big high A, knowing that I was going to go in, and instead of studying for the big history test, I'll take a 60, I'll take a D-. My grade will drop to a B+. I'm happy to be a B student, whatever.
Yeah.
I'll take the D+. It won't take me that long to study to get a 60. It'll take me long to study to get an A. I can get a 60 by more or less guessing and just like sounding somewhat intelligent. Just so that way I could do the YouTube thing.
Right.
Because my life was not my life if I wasn't doing YouTube. I could have given a shit about the history test.
Man, so were you editing those videos after, like on the plane?
On the plane, in the airport, in the
During
stock,
the tour.
during the tour, in the stock room of the store. After the event was over, it was weird. It was like I was super social for like 6 hours, because that's about how long it took to meet everybody and do everything at the pop-up. But for the other 18 hours, I didn't talk to anybody. I would email because that was part of work. I was getting my brand deals, right? Like Crep Protect sponsored the tour. I had a big StockX deal at the time. I had a Champ Sports. There was apparel ones. Yeah, I feel old. I can't remember it. I'm like 23. I don't know how I'm like forgetting some of these things. But anyways, like I had obligations that required communication. Short of that, I had nothing to say to anybody. And there was sacrifice that came with that. I had a girlfriend for 4 years up until that point. Like, ended up losing that relationship. I mean, granted, it's high school, so it's like in retrospect, like I'm not like sitting here like, wow, like that was a screw up. But I'm just saying, like, there was a lot of sacrifice people didn't really see. And I didn't care at all. Yeah. All I cared about was the YouTube. Yep. It was it. That's why I love those people so much. That was it. I was, right, like, I was Just Win, in a sense. Not that I bought into my own shit, but I'm saying that in the sense that, like, that was me. There was nothing fake about it. If I had a lot of homework, I was saying it on the vlogs. if I got to meet somebody cool or go to a cool experience, camera came with me.
Right.
Even if it meant getting kicked out, camera was there. You know what I mean? Today, I am Enclave CEO. You cannot separate my personal life from my current role as CEO. That's just how I am, right? That's right. As much as I went to Frankfurt to unwind, I'm friends with guys in the Dolphins, and I run into them, and I see a couple other, some of the analysts that I'm friends with that were doing the play-by-play, run into them. I end up having dinner with them. We actually have a client in Frankfurt, so I meet with them. Next thing I know, it was a business trip. But it was in Frankfurt, so it was cool and everything. But to the point, like, I don't have any friends that aren't somehow attached to either my current or former business endeavors.
Exactly.
Right? I wouldn't know you if I didn't do YouTube.
Man.
I wouldn't know anyone in the room who works here, any client, any celebrity, none of it.
Right.
What would be the excuse to deal with them? I deal with a different group of people, right? So you build life around what you do, and if you figure out how to monetize it, you have a lot of fun. And if you don't, then go on to the next thing. Go get a job.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with getting a job too. Sneakers, I think, I don't mean to go on this tangent, but I think it's an important tangent for young people that are into sneakers. Just because you can flip sneakers does not mean that you should be an entrepreneur. That doesn't mean that you can't. That just means that you shouldn't necessarily be. If you flip sneakers well and you brand it and you get a couple thousand followers on Instagram, you make a good amount of money. As a 16-year-old kid, you could make plenty of money. Okay. That doesn't then mean that you're too good to go get a job or to do something like that. Because you're not better than anyone else if you're an entrepreneur versus an employee, right? That's just what you do. Being an entrepreneur is harder than being an employee in a lot of cases. It's a lot more stressful. It's a lot more uncomfortable. The hours are longer. That's not necessarily for everybody. And that's the thing in my opinion, now, if you do it at your level, a little different. But for a lot of the people that are sneaker resellers that then think that means they're an entrepreneur, you're not. There's nothing entrepreneurial about it. You didn't invent the product you're selling. You didn't market the product you're selling.
Yeah.
You didn't work the kind of hours that being an entrepreneur truly demands. You didn't innovate anything. You took a product that was already marketed, you put it on a platform that already has an audience, and then you receive the dollars. I'm not taking anything away from it, but don't overcomplicate it in your own head. Don't convince yourself that you're this
Like you're
rock
on top.
star entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And I would even say that was different, because when we were growing up and there wasn't StockX and GOAT, boy, you were kind of an entrepreneur to sell your shit.
Exactly.
You had to have a following on Instagram or you had to have a really strong eBay store because you won't buy from the dudes with 3 feedbacks. You only buy from the people with the top rated ribbon.
Exactly.
So what sneaker reselling took from 2011 to 2015 before all the apps came out, that was a bit entrepreneurial, I think. Right. Which is why I think a lot of those people parlayed it into businesses kind of like I did. But nowadays,
I mean, even like now, bro, like you need to have a platform. You need to have built your platform to even.
If you want to do it like you, if you want to do it like you, because
exactly.
Well, the game's not a. That's the other thing too. We're talking honestly about it. It's not a game anymore.
Yeah.
98% of people are sellers. 2% are actual end buyers. I don't understand how this thing keeps working. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yep.
I sell you a shoe for $235 because you think you can sell it for $245. The person who buys it from you is going to buy it thinking they can sell it for $255. Someone gets stuck with it at the end, or the shoe appreciates because it remains brand new. Okay. You understand the fundamental idea of a profit margin being like sub 10% and what a flaw that is.
Right.
Right? The only way that it can be 10 is if the volume is like the size of StockX's. That's why StockX can do 10 or 14% margins.
Exactly.
Because I could tell you their numbers are in the hundreds of millions of dollars a year. Maybe even over $1 billion now. I wouldn't even know. It wouldn't shock me if they were doing over $1 billion a year in revenue now.
Yep.
So
they're implementing a lot more than just sneakers.
Well, and they got IP. That's the other thing you don't have if you're a sneaker reseller. What intellectual property do you have? You have your brand. The average reseller has no intellectual property. There's nothing to protect. So let's say you resold shoes. Let's say you'd made $100,000 free and clear net profit after tax every year. That's a reseller over here. Now let's say I own a an app that also makes $100,000 a year, free and clear. And I decide I'm done doing these things. All right, who's going to buy this business and how much is it worth? It's worth however much inventory you have, I guess. It's worth nothing. Your numbers are irrelevant. You don't have because if I buy it from you without buying you personally, I'm not buying anything.
Exactly.
The app, you got information, you got data, you got users, you got brand, you got this, you got that.
And
You could take an app that's netting $100,000 a year off, let's say $1 million in revenue. You could sell that thing for $10 million. You could sell that sneaker reselling business for like $18,000 because that's what the inventory is worth. So you're not. That's the other thing I say too, right? You're not. The biggest thing in life, if you're trying to be an entrepreneur, is you got to build equity in something, right? You got to build the value of the equity. You can't build the value of the equity as a traditional sneaker reseller. You can build it by having designer, right? You can build it by having the YouTube and this and that.
Right.
But even that, it's limited how high that ceiling really goes if that's what you're trading on, you know. It's very challenging. But it's perfect for young people to learn mechanics of business.
Right.
You got to learn how to negotiate, dealing with oh my God, you have to deal with it, right? Because you got to watch out for people like you who come up. How much is this? 25. I'll give you 22. What? It's 25. Okay, 23. Wait, but it's 25.
Yeah.
No, I'm good. What? What do you mean you're good? I mean, right? Like I remember being 11, 12 years old, dealing with that for the first time, being like, what the hell? And I was like, fuck it. If that's how this game works, I'm going to get good at this too.
Man.
Right? They come up, 25, $25 item. I'll give you 20. 25. I'll give you 20. 25. Or you just say, you know what, I'll tell you what, why not? I'll do it for 20 if you buy something else. Right? You start playing that game. The same game now that every single person at every single sneaker event or any trade show plays. Right? But that's a big time life experience if you're 14, 15, 16, or even if you're an adult who's never done that before. It's a great experience.
You know,
the earlier you get it, the better.
Right. It's funny because a lot of my content that I'm doing now, it doesn't show my face, but for example, when I go to sneaker events or if I go to even like the outdoor swap meet, I'll record me finding like a Jordan 11 Concord, and I'm like, how much you want for this? I could do 50. Can you do 30? You know what I mean? And it's funny when I negotiate a deal, you know what I mean? I'm always gonna tell the seller a price way below than what I actually want to pay. Yeah. Right? And it's funny.
Sometimes I'll probably be like, okay.
Exactly.
You're like, okay.
Exactly. And it's funny because a lot of the people in my comments, you know, I've been experiencing a lot of like a lot more negative comments because they're like, oh, like, you know, you just took advantage of that person, blah, 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 because they didn't know.
That's their fault. They shouldn't have been able to be taken advantage of.
Exactly.
And they don't feel that way or they wouldn't have accepted your deal. You didn't hold a gun to their head and tell them to take $30.
Right.
You said, here you go. You want it or not? You say no, no problem. In my pocket, away I go. You say yes, okay, here you go. I'll take the shoes, and away I go.
Exactly. So I mean, you know, I tell people all the time, I'm like, you know, I appreciate your feedback. You know, it was a done deal. Have a great day. You know what I mean?
Well, that's stupid.
So it's funny because I've been doing a lot more of that, and the reason why I've been doing a lot more of that is because, you know, I do want to show the people that's watching my videos, you know, how to negotiate and, you know, how to get sneakers for cheap, you know, because a lot of people will be like, all right, I want $400 for these sneakers. And be like, okay, can you do $390? You know, and it's just like, you could have probably got that shoe for like $300 if you really wanted to. You know what I mean? But a lot of people are not willing to, you know, ask. Really.
And I'll tell you what, it's either their margin or your margin, and it's up to you. If the shoe's worth $400 and you offer $390 because you're happy to make 10, that's fine. But if you come in and you buy it for $300, the difference is you just made 25%.
Right.
They made 3%.
And you make money when you buy, not when you sell.
No, you know, right? If you know what you're doing, right, you're correct.
Exactly.
And right.
So, you know, it's, you know, for the people that don't know, we actually met not because of YouTube. We actually met because we were both on the same entrepreneur magazine, Las Vegas Entrepreneur Magazine.
Is that when we first met?
That was when we first met, and you were.
Was it not? I thought it was at wasn't it Ball Dogs or was that afterwards?
No, that was after.
Was that after?
Yeah,
Wow.
we were on the
I know
magazine.
it's been years. I mean, we've known each other for probably 4 or 5 years at
So
least.
Blake and I were on the same magazine. He was named #1, and I was #3 on that magazine. And you were the cover of the magazine. I
That's
remember
right.
Las
I remember
Vegas
that.
Entrepreneur magazine.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
So from there,
That's right.
It was at a bar or something, right?
Yeah, they did. They had a fun little reception for us at House of Rock at Mandalay Bay, if I'm not mistaken. That was cool. You know, it was fun. My grandparents are in their late 80s, and they got to come, so that was a cool thing for them to see. It was, you know, one of those things where it's like you're on the right track. You know, I had just pivoted from the YouTube thing about a year and a half before that or so. That's right. So we met after YouTube, didn't we? Then?
Yeah. We did.
That's right, we did.
We did.
But we wouldn't have met if we hadn't done the same thing.
Exactly.
You're the only one I know from that magazine today, you know what I mean?
Yep.
But yeah, it's just stuff like that though, right? I mean, you bring it up, and I instantly know what you're talking about. If I brought it up, you'd instantly know what I'm talking about. That's a story. That's what I live for. I don't live for the
material stuff.
Here's the Jordan 11, here's this, here's that. I live for that, right? Like that interaction about that magazine, its value, if you will, has come and gone. But its value will never actually leave me because I've got those stories. I've got the friendship with you. I've got the notion that I gave one of the most fond memories to my grandparents they have in relation to me.
Right.
Right? Like, I'm great with that for the rest of my life. But the magazine itself, the marketing value that comes from being on the cover or being a part of it or whatever, I mean, that's come and gone now, hasn't it? Right? I mean, when's the last time you brought up to someone that you were a part of that magazine?
Man, a long time ago.
I don't even, yeah.
But I do remember when we were on it, I was telling people about it all the time.
Yeah, it was cool. It was the flavor of the day, you know.
Yeah.
It was the thing that was happening, and it was a cool thing. I mean, I was 20, I think. So you're the same age as me, right? Yeah. So you were 20. I mean, right? That's what a cool thing to be in a magazine when you're 20 about something you started on your own.
Yep. It was cool, man. It was cool. So
That's fun.
you know, your uncle is Steve Wynn, right? And you know, how has he like impacted your life, even if he has at all?
Oh,
you know?
Steve is like.
What has he taught you?
I am too lucky to be related to Steve. And people always ask, you know, does he give you money? I mean, what? I don't get it. Right? How have you done this?
Yeah.
Steve doesn't have to give me money.
Yeah.
And hasn't. Steve doesn't have to give me money because he can give me an amount of knowledge that
That's it.
whether you're Gary Vee or Grant Cardone, you do not get the kind of advice that I have gotten since I was younger. And it's explained to me so intently. Right? I mean, he managed a team of, at one point, over 250,000 employees. So when we first started hiring people, and I'm 19 years old, Steve, give me some advice on how to manage people. Fly to Palm Beach. We'll sit down and we'll talk about it. Can you be here tomorrow? Sure. We sit down for 14 hours without moving from the seat. My legs are falling asleep 6 times. He explains to me how he did it. For 14 hours.
Wow.
How to go from a team of 0, where he started when he was 20-something years old, to a 250,000 when he was in his 70s. And you got to read between the lines a little bit, and you can ask questions, but Steve is like, I'm not like a super religious person or anything, but Steve is like, if God is watching over me, they sent Steve to be my uncle as someone to watch over me and make sure that I could do everything I ever wanted to do in life. Anything I ever put my mind to, Steve is there to make sure that I can do it because he gives me the nugget of information I need to know how to get to the next step. I ask him for advice 2-3 times a week, every single week. And
To this day.
oh yeah, sure. I talked to him last Thursday was the last time I talked to him, right before I went to Germany. I haven't talked to him this week yet. I just got back yesterday. There is nobody in the world like Steve. If you have a specific question, I'm happy to share a couple stories with you about Steve. But there is nobody like Steve. It is the coolest thing to be able to have the privilege of knowing him. And because of Steve, I've gotten to meet a slew of other billionaires. Michael Rubin, Thomas Petterfee, Dean Spano. I mean, the list goes on of billionaires I've gotten to meet. None of them sniff the kind of person that Steve is.
Wow.
It's so cool. Now, they're great people and everything like that. But in terms of the depth of knowledge that Steve has about every topic. World leaders, I'll be sitting there. World leaders call him up and ask for advice about the stuff they're dealing with that's on the news. It's unbelievable. I mean, he was, and I don't mind saying it, I don't care if people know where my political beliefs sort of stand. He was a senior advisor for Trump. Him and Jared Kushner were senior advisors to Donald Trump. He called him every day that he was president of the United States.
Wow. That's crazy.
The guy built hotels. What the heck could he tell Trump about running the United States? There's a reason Trump wasn't wasting his time calling Steve.
Of course.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Trump could call any
Anyone.
sitting president of the United States could call any human being alive and
Yeah.
get an answer.
Yeah.
Right? That was his guy. Because he had the information that he wanted, that he didn't necessarily see.
Wow.
That's the kind of stuff where I'm like, I can't even really fully describe him in terms of... I would say he is the most intelligent person I've ever met and will ever meet in life, I would say. I've had some of the smartest people that are looked at as smartest people in the world tell me Steve is like the smartest we've ever met. And he really is. It's like you can't really, people don't like keep up with him. You know what I mean? He's on a different wavelength than most people. I mean, you gotta understand, when Steve built the hotels here, they were the largest things ever attempted. Like he built, like this was a desert. 150,000 people lived here.
It's grown so much since then.
There were motels that had, you know, few rooms. The dunes where Sinatra would always perform had like, I think 400 rooms.
Wow.
He was 29 years old and put up 1,200 rooms at the Golden Nugget for the most expensive project ever in Nevada history. He then spent the first time over $100 million had ever been spent on anything in Las Vegas was when he decided to build the Mirage Hotel. And it was $600 million.
Wow.
And he went to the governor and everyone said they couldn't believe it. Why would you put something this expensive? Steve said, I bet this city can support it. 75,000 people were there opening night. It was the biggest thing. Right after Mirage, within a week, every piece of land up and down the strip sold, and all the hotels went up after that. He had already bought 2 more pieces where he then built Treasure Island and Bellagio. That's another thing people don't know about Steve. Steve's not Wynn and Encore. He is. But Steve built the Golden Nugget in Atlantic City, Beau Rivage in Biloxi, Mississippi, the Mirage, the Treasure Island, Shadow Creek Golf Course, Park Lane in London, the Bellagio, the Wynn, the Encore, the Wynn Boston, the Wynn Palace in Macau, Encore in Macau. Of the hotels he built, the year he retired in 2008, he didn't own them all because a lot of times he'd build them and then he'd sell them. And they were publicly traded companies. So, you know, it's not as simple as like, oh, like Steve owns the whole thing. It wasn't ever like that. But his last year as CEO of Wynn, of the top 6 individual properties in terms of how much money they grossed around the world, you know what I mean? All 6 were built by Steve. The Wynn, the Encore, the Bellagio, right? Those are the biggest hotels in the world.
Yep.
Mirage was the first ever hotel to exist with 3,000 rooms in it.
Right.
Wynn was the first ever hotel built that cost more than $2 billion to put up, right?
That's crazy.
And made over $1 billion the first year it was open in net profit. I mean, the guy that's behind that is clearly operating on a little bit of a different wavelength than most people. Right. You know what I mean? And he has just been so great in opening up his knowledge to me. I mean, he's 81 years old now. It's the coolest. And the people that he hangs out with, that's a pretty neat thing to see, right? Like, I mean, every time I'm there, you know, he has someone else over for dinner. Who I'm like, oh my God, they're coming for dinner? He's like, yeah, I've known him 55 years. What? It's very cool.
Who has been the craziest person that he's brought to dinner?
Oh gosh, craziest?
In your opinion?
You know what it is? There's one that jumped to mind, and he's definitely not the biggest celebrity, but there's one that jumps to mind because it shows sort of what I'm talking about. We had a dinner in Palm Beach where Mehmet Oz, you know, like Dr. Oz, and his wife Lisa came.
Oh, wow.
And they came because they wanted to fundraise money for him because he ran for Senate against Fetterman in Pennsylvania. He ended up losing. This was, you know, maybe 2 years ago. So he kind of gives his spiel to this table. It's a round table of about 12 folks. Steve, Thomas Petterfee is CEO of Interactive Brokers. It was at his house. The guy's worth $40-50 billion. He's in the top 25 on the Forbes 400. Only Hungarian billionaire. I mean, just it's unbelievable table. And Mehmet Oz is, giving his spiel, trying to get them to write him these big, checks for his campaign. And just the dynamic of Oz would say something, and remember, Steve's blind. So, right, Steve can't see. So Steve's sitting there, and it looks like he can see. His eyes work. He just literally can't see. He's totally blind, right? Steve's like, as he's sitting there listening, anyone could chime in. This isn't even at Steve's house. But they're all looking at Steve, waiting to see what question he's going to ask. Like Steve, commanded this room without opening his mouth and without even seeing the room. He commanded it. It was just one of the most interesting, I observed that and I remember thinking to myself, what do you have to do in life to be in a room of these kinds of people and you're the ultimate maestro of the room, and he's humble as hell. He's not trying to be the maestro. He can't even see, and he didn't say anything.
Right. Just
watching them, I'm like, he doesn't even realize it. But this is about Steve. This isn't even about Mehmet. This is about Steve. Steve's sitting there and he goes, Mehmet was talking about something he wanted for the education system. Steve says, unless somebody's at this table that I can't see, he says, everybody at this table is over 50 years old. Besides my nephew, Blake, who's here. And you're talking about education. I don't have a good pulse for what's going on in schools, and no matter what any of you at this table say, you guys don't either, because you guys haven't been in school in plenty of time. Blake, what do you think about what Mehmet just said? What? You want me? Can you? And I got to give my opinion to these people who are deciding if they're going to donate this guy probably millions of dollars, right? But those experiences you can't buy those things. You can't, there's nothing transferable about them. Even telling you the story, I don't even know how well that experience was translated.
You gotta be
but
there, yeah.
it's stuff like that that's wow, it's very cool to be a fly on his wall sometimes, and at the end of the day too, right? I'm the only other person really with the last name Wynn. There are other people, obviously, that aren't related that have it. And then I have 2 siblings, and he has 2 daughters. But they have daughters, right? So they're not Wynn. Or they are Wynn, but, little, right? They won't, right? Their kids aren't Wynns. Their kids have different names, right? And then I've got a sister who, when she gets married, her last name will change. Yep. And then I've got a brother who is a pretty regular guy, Nothing wrong with that, but he's a pretty regular guy. So, as far as the entrepreneurship of the family goes, I'm it for Wynn. And so Steve I have more of I would say a father-son relationship with Steve than I do uncle-nephew or something. I'm not really close to my other uncles, you know what I mean? Yeah. Steve's my guy, And
I wish I could meet him one day, man.
If he's ever here, I'll tell you. He hasn't been back in Las Vegas, I think, since 2018. Maybe he's been here for little dinners and things, but he hasn't been here. We're talking about throwing a big event for our company. Okay. We just had our 5-year anniversary in September, so we're talking about maybe throwing a fun gala to bring all our clients, our athletes, something like that. I would probably try and get Steve to come. I don't know if he would, but there's no one like him. He's blind. He rides on a bike 20 miles a day. Wow. Back of a tandem bike, because he can't see. But he wants to be fit. He's 81. Pilates, weights, everything. The guy, I bet you he lives to 110, for sure. I hope he does. If nothing else, I sure hope he does. He's one of those people that certainly makes life better for everybody around him. And I can't stress enough, it has nothing to do with his money, and he's not giving away his money.
Exactly.
It's his brain, it's his elegance, it's his style, it's his wisdom, it's all of that. Yeah. And he's become a little bit controversial over the last few years at no fault of his own, and the allegations that have caused that have absolutely no merit. But you know what? His family, I think, feels very grateful for it, and his friends, because now Steve gets to be present. He gets to enjoy the kind of life that he built for himself, working as hard as he did for 50, 60 years. Right. And he is loving life. He just got these 2 new German Shepherd puppies that are this big, and he's just having fun.
Man.
Yeah.
That's great. That's awesome though. That's a blessing.
He is so cool.
Give us, 2 nuggets that Steve Wynn has given you.
That's a good one. I'll tell him to your stories. The first really killer nugget that immediately jumps to mind. We got an interesting opportunity where someone, I didn't end up doing it, but one of our athletes and a very close friend of mine offered me a substantial amount of money to buy, like, I don't remember, it was like 5 or 10% of the business. Not invest, because we didn't need the capital, just buy it. Like, I would get to keep the money. It was a lot of money. I was like, wow. And I was like 20 at the time. I called Steve. I said, I've got this interesting sort of situation going on. Like, can I come talk to you? He says, yeah, I'm in LA. Come in. Because he doesn't like to be on the phone. It's hard for him to be on the phone. You can't see, so he can't even hold his own phone. Like, it's a little complicated, right? So he likes to do everything in person. Everyone that wants to meet with Steve, they go see him in person. With the exception of, like, Trump or something like that. Yeah. But when I want to talk to him, like, we talk on the phone, like I said, a couple times a week for 3-4 minutes. But besides that, I go see him if I want to have a longer talk. And I have so much fun doing it anyways. So anyway, I go see him, and I tell him the situation, that this guy wants to buy it, blah, blah, blah. He said, well, why would you take a deal like that? I said, well, it's a lot of money. He said, do you need the wealth independent from your business? I said, no, like, I actually still have money from, like, my YouTube days and this and that. Like, I'm good. So why would you do it? Why did you come here to ask me if you should do it? It sounds like you shouldn't. I was like, yeah, but, right now, like, I've kind of got everything in this thing. Like, this is a unique way where, like, if God forbid this doesn't work out, like, I'll have still, made some money. Probably not the right way to look at it, and I know it's not the right way to look at it now, but I didn't. I was 20. It was new to me. Like, wow, this guy's offering me a massive check for a percentage, and I just get to keep the check, and then life goes on, and I keep running my business, hopefully successfully. And at one point, I said something along the lines of, like, I just, Steve, like, I don't want to have all my eggs in one basket. He says, do you read Mark Twain? I said, no. He says, well, let me tell you a Mark Twain quote. Let me put my spin on it. He says, you're worried you have all your eggs in one basket. He said, I've never bought a stock in my whole life besides Win. And I didn't really buy it. You get issued off. It's a little different when you're CEO. So you've never bought a stock? He said, well, I've invested in other things, but no, I've never bought a stock. I always just, my money and everything, like, it was always just tied up in the business. I said, I had all my eggs in it, but you know what I did? I watched the fucking basket. He said, I had all my eggs in one basket, but it's okay to do that. You just got to watch the fucking basket. That's what Mark Twain, it's originally a Mark Twain quote, but he kind of, explained it to me. I said, huh, he's right. And he said, do you believe in your business? I said, yeah. He said, you think it's going to be worth more in 2 years than it's worth today? I said, oh, hell yeah. He said, is he paying you that price, or is he paying you what it's worth today? I said, no, it's paying me what it's worth today. I said, I don't understand. It's like, honestly, Steve, neither do I anymore. Like, I'm with you. I'm not going to do it. I didn't do the deal. To this day, I haven't sold any of my business, and I'm glad I haven't. Because he was right. But he gave me that sense of, like, yeah, you know what? Like, I mean, so often people talk about how they want to diversify and do this and do that. You don't have to do that. Right? Yep. So that was interesting. A second one I think is the idea of not taking no for an answer. But the thing is, and I'll tell it to you the same way you told it to me. Like, Steve's not like Gary Vee, okay? Gary Vee's a friend of mine, so I'm using him particularly as an example because he knows I don't mean it offensively. Gary will say, you've got to love what you do. Right? Gary tells you, like, the punchline. Gary tells you what you should deduce. Steve will just tell you a story about how he did certain things, and it's kind of up to me sitting there to figure out where the nuggets of information are. So I just got to prompt him with the right question. I said, Steve, what made you... There's a very famous commercial of Steve. You've probably even seen it, where he's sitting on the side of the Wynn Hotel right before it opens. Literally, he had a helicopter, and he's blind, attach him to the roof, where he sat there with his legs dangling off, but he says, hi, I'm Steve Wynn. Something about it opening in November of 2005, but he says, this is the finest hotel I've ever built, and it's the first one I've signed my name to. And he points down, helicopter backs out, it shows the Wynn logo, fades to black, says opening, November 2005 or whatever. And then while it's a black screen that says that, you hear Steve go, could someone get me down now? He wrote the commercial himself and everything. I was a kid when he was filming that. I said, what made you think to do that commercial? He was like, and I'm going to tell you the story the way he told it to me, and then I'm going to tell you what I took from it. This is an all-time story. I'm doing it a disservice being the one who's telling it. He says, when Disney opens up a new theme park, they have big commercials during Super Bowl and the Academy Awards. And that's how they ring in the celebration of a new theme park. I've said it might have been audacious, but I thought the Wynn Hotel was like a theme park. So I wanted the same thing. I wanted a Super Bowl commercial, and I wanted to be a commercial for the Academy Awards. So he says, we filmed this whole commercial. And then I took it to the major networks, that show Super Bowl. And they wouldn't let me air it because they didn't want to, be affiliated with gambling. Nothing against Steve. It was just like, look, we don't promote gambling. Remember, DraftKings, all that stuff didn't exist yet. So promoting gambling was kind of still, you don't really do that. This is 2005. He says, so what I realized, though, is the network only owns about 70% of the commercial time. The local versions of the network own the other 30%, right? So you have Fox, but then you have Fox 5 Vegas, right? You got Fox 3 LA, you got Fox 13 Boston. He said, we went out and we brokered a couple of 100 deals individually during the Super Bowl to have that commercial shown on all the local networks. That way, the commercial would still be seen, but we didn't do the deal with the network. We did the deal with all the local ones. Hundreds of these local networks. He said, so I got my Super Bowl commercial and I got my Academy Award commercial, even though I was told no. So I'm hearing this story and I'm like, wow, that's a great story. But I'm like, no, but that is a meaningful entrepreneurship story. Do not take no for an answer. No is not okay. No, he took no for an answer and he didn't sit there and bitch and fight back. Okay, so how else do we do it? That was the meeting. How else do we do it? I don't know, Steve. Well, we got 250,000 people here. Someone's got to figure it out. That was literally how he would be. He created, they called it the house internet, right? So imagine instead of Google, it was like Wynn. I don't know if it was called Wynn, but it was like, think of Wynn. And only the 250,000 employees would go on it, but they'd go on it every day. They had their own little news show that would air in the break rooms. There's a whole little city underneath the Wynn, with like a Panda Express and like all this stuff where they can eat and everything. There's a lot of people. Right. They're not all at Wynn. They're all scattered, all the property, right? But I think there's like 12 or 13,000 employees at Wynn. But anyway, he'd have a house internet. And if he had something to say and he needed help with something, if he really needed to, he'd go on the house internet. What do you guys think about this? Not a big problem, but just like a small thing. Or make sure every guest feels extra welcome today, right? And everyone would hear it. There's stuff like that where he just looked at it like there's never going to be a problem that's too big to solve. And if we can solve any problem, then as long as we're not wrong, we're going to win, right? So he got a Super Bowl commercial without actually getting a Super Bowl commercial. And he did get Super Bowl commercial. And that was one of the more famous casino commercials probably ever of all time. Anybody that's over the age of 35 that lives in Vegas remembers that commercial, I guarantee it. You go home and ask your parents, do you remember the Wynn commercial of Steve sitting on the side of the building? There is no doubt in my mind they will remember it. No doubt.
Right.
Because it was on every network, but it was also on the Super Bowl and the Academy Awards.
That's crazy.
Because he didn't take no as the final answer, ever.
Right.
So we run into wall after wall after wall in our business, and same thing, we don't take no. We don't take no. We maybe do things, we have to adjust the way we do things, but we don't take no. And it's a powerful thing when you understand that. And when it gets explained to you by someone who didn't take no, ever, and then ended up where he is. Because mind you too, right, like when he's telling me these stories, I'm sitting in his home. His homes are like, there is no such home in the city of Las Vegas like the kind of homes Steve has in like Palm Beach and LA and New York. Like these are like
massive.
Size of bigger than an office building.
Wow.
I mean, these are massive properties. These are like $100 million properties. And you're sitting there and you're listening to him tell you these stories and you're like, but this isn't bullshit. Like he did this and this is where he is, right? But most people don't really do it. And also, he happened to do something that was incredibly lucrative, right? Like gaming and hospitality and entertainment. I mean, it's all very, very lucrative.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, every time he tells me a story, I pull nuggets from it, and we apply it. And I would say the biggest X factor of my role as CEO is truthfully taking the nuggets that I get from Steve and figuring out how to transfer them to like our team.
Your business. Yeah.
And how they apply to our business. Not everything does, right? I mean, but a lot of times too, when he tells me a story and I don't get a nugget from it, I'm like, okay, I got to think about this story more. Not because he's not trying to give me nuggets. I've told him, like, Steve, just tell me stories. I will do the learning. Like, I'll learn. You just story tell.
Yeah.
Because he is an exquisite storyteller.
Right.
You feel like you're sitting right there when Steve tells a story. You know, even that, like he's not giving me pointers on how to tell stories, but if I listen to him tell a story 800 times, right, and he's as good of a storyteller as he is, it helps me be better.
Right.
You know, so it's stuff like that.
Right. Wow, man. So I mean, that's actually massive though. Being a great storyteller.
Oh yeah.
Right. Especially as a content creator, right? Like that's something I'm
Big time.
You know, trying to learn more how to get better with that as time goes on is being a great storyteller, because like what you just said, he makes you feel like you're literally there.
You gotta have a climax. You gotta be building up to something. Mm-hmm. But then once you give the punchline, the story ought not be over. Mm-hmm. You oughta and he doesn't put it this way, but I've noticed the way he'll do this. He'll tell me a story and then he'll climax. But then he'll almost give you like a little drop off to where you're like, okay, he's wrapping up the story. And I think really for him, it just triggers another memory. Telling a story triggers memories oftentimes, right? And then all of a sudden he ramps up to a new climax. So his storytelling journey isn't like most creators and people where it's like, all right, build up, climax, rise down, fall, conclusion. It's kind of story, build up, climax, transition, climax. Oh, is it time to have dinner? Okay. Done.
That's crazy, man.
Very cool.
That's awesome. So, we're almost at the end now, but, I have a few more questions to ask you. With your sneaker reselling business, because you used to do that before, and with your business now with your sports agency and now with the poker, how do you what is your best advice for building a team?
Well, in the context of hiring or in the context of managing them?
Both.
Well, hiring, boy, we've gotten so much better at this. I hate even saying this out loud because this is really our competitive edge, but I don't think people won't know how to react to it anyways. You ask them questions or you do certain things in the interview that, never mind that they're not expecting, but what they don't say to you is what you're interested in. Mm-hmm. I'll give you an example. This is a current example, but it's done now, so I'm happy to share with you. I'm looking for someone who is a really good poker content creator. Mm-hmm. So I reached out to all these big poker blogs on Instagram, and I said, hey, would you sell me your page? Anyone that said no, I was interested in talking to. Mm-hmm. Anyone that said yes, said okay, so they're ready to move on. I want to talk to the people that like making this kind of content. I want someone who loves this. I know how to find them. I'm going to ask them if they'll sell their business, because if they say no, I'm intrigued. If they say yes, I'm not intrigued, mm-hmm. right? So even that was literally level one of their interview, and they didn't even know it. They might not even want the job, but that was level one, right? So it's things like that we've gotten kind of intentional about, right? Like, you got to understand the psychology of who you want on your team, and how do you go get people that fit that psychology, mm-hmm. right? And I would say it's an advanced way of looking at it. If you're trying to build a team to run a restaurant, it's a different story. You just pull from the labor pool and you get your cook, your servers, right? But if you're trying to build a team in a business like this, right, it's not easy. I think just rule of thumb is like hire slow, fire fast, I think. Isn't
that what Gary Vee said too?
I think it's what I didn't make that up by any means.
Yeah.
That's big advice. That's very real. You lose a lot more by having someone on your team for too long than you than you gain by hiring someone, fast that works. Because you could have hired them slow anyways. The biggest thing about managing a team is, and it goes back to the psychology point, you got to understand everybody's motivations. Because there is another level that exists in every human being if they're doing something that they love. And if their self-esteem is attached to their productivity, right? Mm-hmm. If you will look at yourself better in the mirror because you're doing good at work, then we've figured out how to have you on the team. Mm-hmm. If you don't care, then you're never gonna care, right? And I'm not saying this to sound underhanded by any means. You are a very, very lucky person in life if you're able to attach your self-esteem to your work in a healthy way.
Right.
If you're able to have a win at work and let it send you home with a smile, that's winning. If you are capable of having a lousy day at work and not going home and taking it out on your significant other or something, but if you're able to go home and go, I didn't win today. I kind of lost today. You kind of treat it like an athlete. That's a big time mindset. Mm-hmm. You're a winner in my book if you're able to have that in your workplace. So administratively, we've got to build that. And that's a culture conversation. That's so much of the value I've gotten from Steve. The problem, I think, with the average workplace is that it goes that saying like trading hours for dollars. Nobody here is trading hours for dollars because nobody's thinking about their hours or their dollars. They're thinking about what the frick they got to do, to make this thing successful. Then what you got to do is you got to understand what they want for themselves. Do they want to be someone who's got a big network? Do they want to be someone who's real wealthy? They want to be someone who gets to create content all the time, right? What do they want for themselves out of life? Do they want to be able to spend a lot of time at home and be a good parent if they got kids? Once you understand that, you can figure out how to make it clear to them where they fit in the picture of your business, right? So if you got someone who loves creating content, you run a business like ours, you make it clear to them, all that matters now is the content you create. That's what you always wanted? That's what your job is, right? And you nurse that, and you kind of massage growth into it and everything like that. But that's the big thing, because most businesses are happy to have hired you. Here's how you do what you do. Sit down and do what you're supposed to do. Mm-hmm. You better hope you hired someone who's really self-motivated, which most people aren't, just truthfully. Right. Because if you didn't, that person's productivity is going to look like this the first week, and just slowly but surely it's going to just taper off till it's nothing. The way Steve would put it to me is he says, think of this. He says, when you go to Wynn, you feel a certain way, don't you? You walk in, right? You've been in the Wynn Hotel. Mm-hmm. You walk in. The employees, they're put together. They got a certain look. Can we help you get somewhere, right? Like, they're very attentive to the guest. They're dressed sharp. They're on point. You expect something. He says, you realize, he says, we pull from the same labor pool that the Circus does, right? We pull from the same labor pool that McDonald's does, right? I'm not slighting these businesses. No, I'm just saying, right? Like, everybody that works at Wynn came from the same labor pool that every other business in the world pulls from. Right. So why do our people operate here and everyone else operates here? Not literally everyone else, right? But why do our people operate so much better? They're not smarter. They're not... No. They're a part of something. And what they want for themselves, they've identified how to get it as a result of being a part of this. Mm-hmm. So they're working relentlessly to get that. Just like I'm working to get what I want to get. And just like my COO is doing that, everyone is, right? They're not all working for Steve, they're working for themselves. They can give a shit about me, right? But what they don't what they could care a lot more about is the idea that they want to send their kid to private school, right? And as it turns out, the better dealer you are, the more that we move you up to the higher and higher stakes. Mm-hmm. If you get a tip dealing $5,000 hands, you get $100 tips. And you get a tip every hand. Mm-hmm. If you deal $500,000 hands, which exist at the Wynn Hotel, you might get a $5,000 tip when you deal a winning hand. So imagine you want to be that dealer. So you'll work really hard on the people playing for $10 because you see a path to get exactly what you want out of your current job, right? Like, he's shown you that you can achieve everything you want to achieve right here, right now, because he understands that about you, right? Like, we're a small business, so I have the fun fortune. I understand everybody here very well, and they understand me, and that's what's so fun. You know, it's like a little family in here. It's like a rally. We have a winning day in the office. We get a new client that we're excited about, or, you know, we sign a big player to play in our poker tournament or something like that. We are all jazzed up. If I screw up a deal, if I fly to New York City to go close a deal and I come back and I screw it up, no one out there is like, God, dude, why do we work? Blake is an idiot. But everyone's kind of like, shit, we got to get back out there. You know,
I could see that firsthand, though.
We got to get back
Like
out
just
there.
knowing a lot of, you know, being friends with a lot of your employees.
Yeah.
You know,
Everybody
myself,
cares.
I can see it
Everybody
firsthand.
cares.
Like since the first day I stepped in your first office, like I could see it firsthand.
I appreciate it. And right? And that's why it works.
Yeah.
We got a big business for a team of 12 people with an average age of 25. You know, we're doing a lot of big business for that kind of group.
Right.
Right? 12, 25-year-olds. Like, it sounds like the average NFL fantasy football league.
Yeah. Yeah.
Imagine if that fantasy league come together. I'm not saying they couldn't build what we built, but that more or less is what this is. Not literally from fantasy football, but like, right, like more to the point of like, there's no rocket science to what we do. It's effort, it's understanding. It would seem like rocket science to someone who's never been exposed to it, but once you're here for a month, I bet most people that have worked here for longer than 2 years could go start their own business and be really successful. Not because they learned from me, but because they learned in an ecosystem that they participated in. You see what I'm saying? Right. Like that is one of the very cool things about this that also I didn't always get out of YouTube. I had a team of like 5 when I was doing YouTube.
So as like a sneaker reseller that also does content like myself, right? What type of advice would you give them as far as like if they want to build a team and, you know,
Do something else for a living.
Really?
Unfortunately, yes.
Because you had a team when you did it, right?
Well, yeah, but
When
I
you were
mean,
doing sneaker reselling.
I did. Well, sneaker reselling was at a different point. Like when I resold, like StockX didn't exist. I was a top-rated seller on eBay. I was shipping out 150 to 200 orders a day, 365 days a year. I had a team because I literally couldn't do it on my own. I wasn't like, oh, I kind of want the ego boost of like having employees. It was like I literally like I could not do it on my own. So you get people into it. And now, granted, I didn't run that as much like a team. That was like, right, I hired an editor. I hired someone who did fulfillment. I hired someone who was kind of like a website manager. We were very close as friends, but I wouldn't say they got the kind of team and culture experience that you get working at Enclave. But the reason I'd say do something else is like, I'm saying that to like you, and I'm not really saying that to the audience.
And you've told me that before, though.
You know, no, and I'm just right on, and I'm saying that to you from the standpoint of like, you've kind of done everything you can do in this space,
Right.
without graduating from it, right? If anyone watching this has built a substantial social media presence, has sold over $1 million of product lifetime, has traveled the country meeting other people that do the same thing, right? Has backdoored and won the raffles, and once you've done all of it, it's like, okay, you've done all of it. Like, can you go scale it to the size of Urban Necessities? Like, maybe, but like, there's also like, what else is the same size as Urban Necessities? Okay, let's ask it this way. Let's ask it this way. How many people go, because I can tell you these numbers. How many people go to SneakerCon Los Angeles in a weekend? 40, 50,000 people. How many people vend at that thing? 1,400, 1,500, right? How many people have scaled their business to the size of Urban Necessities or Flight Club or StockX or GOAT or one of those? Of the people that are in that room, 0, unless one of them are in that room. Overall, how many people do you think are in the sneaker space in some capacity? Content, reselling, collector, something. A couple million people?
A lot,
At least a couple million people. And 20 of them have done that, right? You said, well, you did that and you hired a team. Yes, and I say it not to sound not humble, but I want people to be aware. This is a stepping stool. if you look at this as more than a stepping stool, it's very dangerous. Yes, I built a team of 5 people who were needed out of necessity, but I also had like the second largest following of anybody doing sneakers at the time that I did that. I had an online store that was in the top 0.1% of traffic and of sales of all Shopify-based stores. And I only had that team of 5 for like 12 months, you know. So like
everything else was yourself.
Yeah, well, it was myself, and then I left it and started the next thing, you know. So I guess more so my point is like, it goes back to the point I was making about the culture, right? Like, what do you want for yourself? If you tell me what your North Star is, if there's a chance that that North Star can be achieved in the context of this business, you'd be a good fit here, right? My North Star was so far outside the realm of what I thought I could achieve in sneakers. North Star was 100,000 subscribers. Like hitting in 7 months was kind of like wait, that doesn't seem right. I worked really hard, but for 7 months, that's not entrepreneurship. Mm-hmm. My North Star when I was 11 was being a top-rated eBay seller. It took me 2 years. I was 13 when I got that. That was a big deal for me. Then the North Star was earning 100 grand in 1 year. I did that when I was 16. Like, those things took a couple years of like, just, I want this goal so bad, you know? And you finally get there, and it's cool to get there and feel like, wow, all right, what's the next North Star? I was in your shoes, and I didn't think there was any more North Stars. Like 1 million subscribers, like, okay, yeah, that sounds cool. No disrespect, but like, I never cared about the quantity. I cared about the quality of it. Like I said, I loved the dynamic with the followers when I had 199,000. I had 430 with my third most recent video having 5.7 million views in 2 weeks, and I quit. Right. Because that wasn't North Star. North Star is not numbers. North Star is quality of life. North Star was, I want to wake up and love what I do every single day and feel free as a result. And YouTube, I knew wasn't that. That's all. Anymore. Yeah. I just think if you look at this as more than a stepping stool, your exit from doing this won't be so graceful. And I say that from the standpoint that, like, it's fun to do this, but it's more fun to parlay it into something else. Mm-hmm. And whatever that something else is. What if I told you you could parlay it into being the senior director of content for Complex? Maybe you never even thought about that, but that could maybe be a cool job for you, if that's even a real title, right? And maybe they'd hire you, and you'd have a leg up over everybody else because you've built what you've built, right? I'm not saying that's for you, but more so providing the point that you want to be able to make those step ups, right? Going from 5,000 to 100,000, you made the step up. If making the step to 1 million is that significant to you, then go for it. But you're gonna hit it. If you really never quit, you'll hit it. Mm-hmm. And then when you hit it, then what? Right? That's the kind of thing, right? I started getting to the point where I'm like, okay, let's say I do all these other things, right? Then what? Let's say I thought about everything. What if I start a StockX competitor? I could go hire a tech team. I could go fundraise. I could do all of it, right? I have the audience. I could get the downloads. Right? And mind you, I thought that when StockX was like 6 months old, not today.
Right.
Today it's a $5 billion business. Probably couldn't compete with it. But you know what? If I really wanted to that bad, I'd still try, honestly. But when I say your exit won't be so graceful, you don't want your exit to come from a place of like, dude, I don't get any views anymore on the content, and I can't buy inventory anymore because everything's so saturated, and I can't sell it because the website's not, right? Like, once you got to quit because it's not going well, especially when you're young, that's very dangerous. Very, very dangerous psychology. Because just like I said, I had so much value in the YouTube followers because they gave me so much confidence that I could set my mind to something and go do it. Quality. Well, my God, if the alternative was that I could set my mind to something and I won't be able to achieve it, and if I do achieve it, it still won't work, and I was in my early 20s or something, I'd be like, oh God. Right? Your outlook on life would be so different.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing I caution people. You got to understand it's a stepping stool. Because I could tell you this too, and I'm sure this will offend people, but I'd rather say this to the kids. There is not a single 40-something-year-old that is selling shoes at SneakerCon and doesn't wish they were probably doing something else, truthfully. I'm not saying they're not making a lot of money. Not saying it's not good for them. They got to support their families.
Right.
It's become their job.
Right.
They might like it because they like the hobby and everything, and more power to them. But if you don't think they'd rather own StockX or be a social media celebrity or, I don't know, a million other things, I would say you're probably wrong.
Right.
And so if you're 14 years old and you think you're a baller because you get to walk around with $1,500 in your pocket and you're flipping stuff and you're having fun, like that's good. It's really good. I encourage it. But like figure out what that looks like when you're 34.
You know, it's funny that you bring that up, right? And before our podcast, you're asking me what do you want to do, aside from the sneakers and stuff like that. And to be honest with you, the answer would be real estate, right? So, and I haven't told any of my audience this too, right? And because at the beginning of the year, I was this close to getting my first rental property, and we were at the last day of escrow, and then the deal fell through because the owner's sibling put the title into a trust. So I was like, okay. So I talked to one of my friends. He was like, bro, you're so young. The rental properties are not going to make you as much money. You know what I mean? So you're still young right now. So just keep grinding what you're doing right now. Keep making as much money as you can, and eventually when you have like the big bucks, then settle down with the rental properties. But it's like something in real estate. It's like I'm religious, so I pray every single day that God touches my business, He touches my real estate journey, whatever that will be one day, and whether that's, like I said, like long term holds or fix and flips or wholesale real estate, whatever it is, or even being like a realtor, like that's actually really what I wanted to do. You know
Okay,
what I mean?
well, I already know for a fact, because a couple of them are mutual friends of ours, that you've got some big-time real estate people in your network.
Yeah, exactly.
Go offer to work for them for free and keep doing what you're doing on the side. Work for them for free for like 90 days or 180 days or a year. Or end up getting hired by them and then love life forever after that, right? Because they probably wouldn't give you the initial job without the background that you have. But if you go in and you crush it, you could be a real estate agent. That could be what you do. What's wrong with that, right? You could be a broker. You could be in commercial. You could be. Real estate isn't particularly my thing, so I can't necessarily go super into what that could translate into for you. But I mean, wealth for sure. I agree with what your friend said. I don't think it's I've explored it from that angle, and I would agree that having a rental property here's the thing about rental properties. This would be fun 5-second thing. My grandfather, on my other side of my family, on my mom's side of my family, Steve is my dad's older brother. So on my mom's side, my grandfather owns apartment buildings. That's what he does in California. And I've always, my whole life, I'd always kind of, why didn't you just get rid of those and buy a couple houses and deal with those? Because you got to deal with so many people. He said, well, if you have an apartment building, say you got 10 units, say you rent out 8 of them, you're 80% occupied, and you make X much money, whatever, right? And you walk through the finances. Said, if you got a house, you got a rental property, you got 2 options. You're 100% occupied or you're 0% occupied. If you're 0% occupied, sorry, didn't mean to do that. That's a funny blooper. If you're 0% occupied, you are getting your ass kicked because you're losing on property taxes, utilities, HOA, if it's et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
If you're 100% occupied, all right, great. But what if they don't pay rent? Now you're 100% occupied and you're not making money, right? But if you got volume and you can have that percentage live in the middle, you can always make money. So if you're going to get into real estate, you got to be able to do it with some volume. Was how I was taught about real estate. And I looked at my bank account and was like, okay, well, real estate and volume isn't really an option. So that'll be something I do later in life, I guess,
Yeah, because I was thinking about it. I'm like, like what you just said, like when you're 40 or, a little older, right? you don't want to have to be carrying boxes the whole time. You don't want to have to be cleaning shoes and taking photos.
And if you do, that's why I say, then good. I was, again, saying to you, I don't think that's what you want. And I'm also saying to anyone watching this that's like under the age of 24 that you should consider more if you don't love this.
But for now, I
Right.
do still love it though.
JC loves this.
Yeah.
He made it work. You know, JC has a different level of passion than any other person in sneakers that I've pretty much ever seen.
Yeah.
That's why his audience gravitates to him so much. But if you think for a second that JC is not also putting in 30 times the work of any of the other people that are his age that are just standing behind a table of 200 pairs of shoes on it, no. You know, and the sacrifice that JC's had, not my story to tell, it's his to tell, but what I can tell you is like JC is number one, he's no accident, and number two, he's a unicorn, right? So, and I'm not saying you shouldn't chase the unicorns, I'm just saying just be mindful, right? Like, I mean, look, right, like when I was doing the YouTube thing, like something that I used to, I'd tell people, I said, you understand, I am the 1,000, I don't know what I am now, but I remember when I hit about 350K, so in like 2018, I remember it was really cool. I cracked the top 1,500. I was the 1,497th most followed YouTuber, most subscribed to YouTuber. I remember telling my mom that, and she was like, 1,500th? For this? She went with me on tour, 1,500. There's 1,500 people that have more followers than you? Yeah, but there's 51 million people who have tried. You know, you're still in you're 10 to the power of -6 was what percentile I was in terms of my following on YouTube. And I'm telling you, I walked away because I didn't think that was it for me.
Yeah.
You know? And I am so grateful that I did. I love my life now. And there was a time I couldn't ever picture what life would be like without YouTube. I can't picture what life would be like without Enclave or now the poker stuff, right? Like, and you just let life evolve. But I also say this, similar to JC, and I'm not saying it from a place of like bragging or sounding like I have a big ego, but I know for a fact that I'm outworking most people, right? Yeah. Like I am. My day starts at 6:30. My day ends at 10. I just counted on the flight. I've already been on 89 flights this year, and it's November 7th. And those are not flights to Barbados for fun. Like those are flights to like Cincinnati and Dallas and random places because that's where business takes me. Knoxville, Tennessee, Sofia, Bulgaria. Like these are not vacation destinations. Some of them, yeah, I've been to Miami, whatever. But I'm in Miami. I'm not like sitting at the Fontainebleau pool like tanning. I'm same thing. I'm in meetings and I'm tired because I took a red eye and slept sitting up like that for 5 hours, you know, and like. But I do it not for the sake of like like you did that. Like I wouldn't want it any other way. Like food in New York. I was meeting with the longest standing stockbroker on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. I got to go see the stock exchange. It was open on Wall Street, the whole thing. Yeah, there's nothing else I'd rather be doing. That was super cool. We had a great meeting. Without even getting into the details of what that, led to it, et cetera, like I slept for an hour in like the taxi on the way there, like 2 hours on the plane, like did that, got on a train to Philadelphia, had a meeting in Philadelphia, got on a red eye to Frankfurt, landed in Frankfurt at 7 a.m., had meetings for like 8 hours, then walked around Frankfurt at night, woke up the next morning, meetings, football game, flight home, here in the office the next day, right? Like even when it's fun, like I'm still out working most people. Right. There's plenty of people that are working as hard as I am, right. But it's more so just to say that like all those people are doing well for themselves, and I'm fortunate enough to be doing well, but it's not by accident. There's elements that are lucky, right? There's the right? I probably worked for that magazine cover, but it was lucky that you were also in it because then we developed a friendship and we've done business together. We've done marketing deals together. We've done shoe deals together, right? Like we've broken bread together.
Right.
It was lucky that you were in that magazine, but it was not lucky to myself that I was on it, and it was not lucky to yourself that you were in it. You earned those things. But then there's a little bit of it that, you got to feel lucky about. And that's the cool part. But you create your own luck by being everywhere all the time.
Yeah.
That's part of entrepreneurship, and that's also something that like most people don't want, right? Like people will ask me like, so like, do you watch this show, or do you watch this show on Netflix, or do you watch, it's like, watch the show? What are you talking about? Watch a show? Like no, I don't watch the show. Like no, so it's.
I get that all the time too.
Yeah, it's like no, I haven't watched Yellowstone. I'm sorry, I haven't watched Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I've never watched TV. Like I'm not trying to sound like that, but like no, like I haven't watched these really long series and stuff. I'll watch football games on Monday night if I can make it, or on Sundays I love watching. Like that, I would say that's my cheat thing. Is like if I can watch football, like I'll watch football.
My thing is basketball.
Right, basketball, fun to watch. I don't, regular season is too much. I can't just like do it every night. But like during the week, right? Like I'll fill up like my Wednesday night, then my Tuesday, then my Friday, then I'll like look at the schedule and be like, oh shoot, what game's better, the Monday night or Thursday night? Because like I will try to preserve the Monday and Thursday nights to watch football.
Right.
Because I just love it. Right. But if I can, I don't. And there's plenty of times I miss it. I was on the plane during the Chargers one. That's my team. Because shit happens, but.
Man, so, we're going to wrap up this podcast very soon, but, this is definitely going to be an episode that I'm going to rewatch.
Sure.
Just by itself, you know what I mean? I think one of the reason why I started this podcast is so I could, talk to people like yourself and have conversations with people like yourself, and, I can learn as much as the audience watching right now. So, you're only the fourth guest.
Well, I'm happy to do it.
And I'm excited to see what the future of this podcast holds. But, what is for the final thing, what is your number one advice for everyone watching right now that you've ever gotten, or just from yourself? What is your number one advice for life, business, or whatever it is?
Yeah, I think it's the don't take no for an answer one. It's amazing what happens when you really wrap your mind around the idea that no just means you got to look at it differently or involve another person or something like that, right? Like imagine if you'd asked me, can I be on your podcast? No. Or can I be a guest on your podcast, right? And I just been like, no. Right? You probably been like, all right, like no worries. But imagine if that wasn't how you thought. Imagine if it was like, all right, well, Blake's willing to be on some podcasts. Like he went on Sean Kelly's podcast, right? You know Sean. I think he's a friend of ours, right? Why did he go on Sean's? I don't know. Why did he go on Sean's, right? Well, Blake's really good right? Blake's business partner is a former Chargers guy, Hayes Plart, and he doesn't do nearly as much media as Blake does. I'm going to have Hayes come on my podcast, and I'm going to show him as good of a time on the podcast as he's ever had in any sort of interview, because I bet he goes back and raves to Blake about the experience. And then maybe I'll ask Blake in 6 more months after I get a couple of his other friends on it or something like that, right? Like, I'm giving you a random example, but
it's a great example.
It's amazing how different the mind works when hearing no just means like, okay, so we got to go this way, we got to go this way, we got to go this way, right? But like 99% of people, it's like, will you be on my podcast? No. All right. Will you be on my podcast? Yes, great. Will you be on it? No. Will you be on it? Yes. Will you be on it? No. And then you just go, right? And I'm not saying to waste time on one person, but I'm just saying if you wanted to, if you didn't want to accept the no, you don't have to, right?
Is there ever a day that you do accept the no, though?
Not if you really want to do it, right? Like, I put it this way, right? Like, that in that example, right? Like, yeah, like I think you accept no because like you're talking about a random podcast guest, right? But like, I want to own the largest thing that's ever happened in the space of poker ever before. If I went to the WSOP and told them that, they'd be like, screw off, right? I don't care, right? Like, trying to think of an example. All right, this will be the last story I'll tell. This is a great story. I don't think I've ever actually shared this story, and this is a sneaker story. This is really like how, honestly, like how my YouTube thing like actually like was able to be.
Okay.
SneakerCon San Francisco was May 2nd, 2016 in San Jose. That was a date that this story starts. 2 weeks prior, I reached out to Kais Omar at bookkaisomar@gmail.com was his email. And I reached out and I said, "Hi, Kais. My name is Blake Wynn. I'm 15 or 16 years old. I'm from Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm going to be starting a YouTube channel talking about my sneaker inventory. I've got over $100,000 worth of product right now. I've got, these 15 pairs of LeBron samples that have only really ever been seen on Sully Ghost's channel. I've got fragments. I got this. I got that. And you do the Crew Kicks collection videos. I'd love for you to come feature my collection. Here's a couple of attached images. Big supporter of your channel. Nice to meet you, Blake." He responds pretty much right away. "I only film in the Bay or in LA. I don't come to Vegas." He was nice, but said no. Okay. So I was like, well, this is good though, because I'm going to get to meet him when I'm there, and I'll just make sure I get to meet him and give him an impression. And YouTube was brand new then. So we get to SneakerCon Bay Area, and I'm vending, because I'm still reselling. And I haven't even filmed my first video yet. I showed up with a camcorder that flipped out on the side, the strap to your hand, and I made my first video at that SneakerCon. I'm going to go up to Kais, and it's like he's got 500 people in line, like screaming for him. And they're doing the merch and everything. I'm like, oh, shit, I'm never going to get to Kais. God damn it. I was so excited, and I want to start this YouTube, but I know I need to be a featured crew collection to like get started. Said, I got an idea. Said, I'm going to go to Crep Protect. He's a big, they were a big partnership back then. So I went and met the Crep Protect guys. I walked up to him and said, "Hi, my name is Blake Wynn. I'm starting a YouTube channel today, and I guarantee you I'm going to be the most followed person in this space within 12 months. Was there any way that you guys would sponsor me? Let me see some of your content." No, I'm filming my first video right now. The guy did not like me the first 15 minutes of this conversation. He was kind of like, "Here's some free product, like you can give it away or something." And I was like, "Thanks." I was like, "I want to sign with you guys." He said, "We're not doing that." I said, "Why not?" He said, you don't have a following. What are we going to sign you to?" I said, "Well, I'll sign for free, but I want to be signed. I want to be considered a Crep ambassador. I want to be in this. I will do it for free, and I'll do it for free for 12 months and all this stuff. Why do you think like this?" And I started telling him a little bit about like how I had this reselling business and all this stuff. Well, that guy, I call him Uncle Steve, and it's not Steve Wynn. His name's Steve Spalacy, and he is like my uncle to this day. We're still incredibly close. And he actually signed me to Crep Protect right there on the spot. I hadn't posted my first video, and that's when I signed to Crep Protect.
I remember you telling me this story.
So then I said, "Steve, can you introduce me to Kais?" Oh, he's this English guy with a strong accent. I'm not going to do the accent because I don't do it that well. But he goes, "Oh," in his words, he goes, "Oh, fucking hell. That's what this was all about? I can't take you to Kais. He's busy." No. I want to be with Crep Protect. Thank you very much. Walk away. So I know another idea. He's got his friend Harris here. Remember Harris? Harris is like one of his friends that was in his little crew in 2016.
Yeah.
And he loved LeBrons. And I had all these LeBron samples and stuff that I've been putting in Kais.
That's true.
Harris was easy to grab. I walked up to Harris. I said, "Harris, I got to show you my table. You're a LeBron guy. You're going to love this. I got stuff that no one else in this building's got." I walk him over to the table. And I had like Clark Kent LeBron 8s, the denim and the neon-y ones. I had the LeBron 7s that looked like Brett 11s. You know what I'm talking about? Like I had all those samples.
Yeah.
And I was trying to sell them. I had the championship pack. And Harris happens to be the same size as my championship pack. He said, "Oh, these are my grails." "How much do you want for them?" I said, $3,000. $3,000. Oh. He said, "Man," he said, "that's a good price." These things went for like $35,400 back then. This was like right after they came out.
Brand
the
new,
red and the
used?
brand new,
Okay.
brand new, and like an 11.5 or 12 or whatever. Oh my gosh. I said, "Do you want them?" He said, "More than anything, these are my grails because I don't have $3,000. It's like, "Do you have two?" He's like, "No." And I think I had paid $1,800 for the pack. I got him from Solely Ghost, matter of fact. He was someone I did business with before I started the whole YouTube thing, for those of you guys remember his name. Adam G. And I said, well, how much could you pay? I said, dude, I'd give you all the money in my wallet. He said, it's a joke. I said, how much do you have in your wallet? He says, $780. So I tell you what. I said, you bring Kais over here, and you let me have a talk with him, and you push him to do a Crew Kicks video. I said, just that. I said, you're not his manager, and I know that. I'm not going to hold you to anything. So you can walk away with this for the $780. Seriously? You just want me to bring Kais over? I said, yeah. Next thing I know, within 5 minutes, up comes this pack of people to the table, and Kais right in front with his camera on, recording him and Harris. How are you? I hear you really want to meet me. You're going to do a big favor for my friend. I said, Kais, we emailed. Oh, yeah, it's nice to meet you. I said, Kais, check out this stuff. I said, wouldn't it be fun to do a Crew Kicks collection video? Yeah, but I'm never really in Vegas, whatever. I said, Kais, next time you're in LA, make the drive. It'll be fun. Do your friend a favor, because your friend's getting this LeBron championship back if you do it. You know what? I'm going to be in LA next week. Could you do it next Saturday? Absolutely. All right, I'll be there. Really? Yeah. Shook hands on it. Here you go, Harris. Take it. $780. I took like an $1,100 loss. Next Saturday, Kais was at my front door. I couldn't believe he actually showed up. I thought he was going to flake. We filmed the collection video, and the rest of it was history. That collection video took me from 900 subscribers to 5,000. 5,000 subscribers in 2016 talking about sneakers was actually like a big following. Yep. It doesn't make sense to say that now, but it really was. Yep. With 5,000 followers, I was signing autographs in like Nike towns and stuff. I didn't even have to be at SneakerCon. You know what I mean? Taking pictures in sneaker places, of course, right? But it'd be like a poker influencer being in a casino. Right, if you're in the hot zone of your demographic, someone will probably come say what's up or whatever, which I thought was unbelievable as a sophomore in high school or freshman maybe, no sophomore. But that was how I started it. Without knowing it, maybe that's the part of it that's in the genes, from Steve. I didn't really take his no at face value. I figured out a creative way to do it, and I would not be sitting here today if not for the YouTube, which I don't think would have done what it did if not for Kais. It certainly would have taken a lot longer, and I might have quit. You never know how life goes, right? The what ifs. For as many times I could look back and be like, man, if I had done that, I'd have gone, right? I could look back and say, man, if I didn't accidentally have done that, right? If I didn't accidentally said to Harris, you know what, here's the thing for 780.
Who knows?
I got a lot of life that I can sort of attach to that moment, but I don't know what would have happened if not, So That's the part about creating your own luck, I guess. That's the nugget I leave people with.
The stories were amazing.
Oh, good. I'm glad. I'm getting better at it, I guess.
Let's show the people the plaque, though, before we conclude this, man. So you guys see it. This is my plaque, and then this is Blake's.
This is what happens when you get it when you're, 17. I mean, I think they've had two or three versions since this one.
Really?
In fact,
the newest one. Obviously.
I think yours, yeah. If you're willing to pay, you can get the new versions. You can't get the old versions, but you can get the new ones. Yeah. So let's say another one comes out. I think it's like
really?
So $600
you can get another one.
I never did, but I could.
Oh wow.
It's like $680, and you got to wait like a couple of weeks. Yeah, I've never done it. This is the one. This is what I always wanted. If I broke it, maybe I would, but.
You still have the letter and stuff too, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's cool.
Does it still come with a letter from Susan?
It does.
Or no, she's not CEO anymore.
No, it's not. It's this one right
Who's
here.
Who's CEO? Yes, Susan was Neil something.
Check that out.
Oh, it's a totally different letter now.
Yeah, it's cool though. It made me cry. It actually made me cry. The YouTube video is gonna come out soon where I literally cried when I was reading towards the end. So
that's really cool. I remember when I was watching it live, hit it. I was filming it, and I was in my a rolly office chair like that one, and I was like yes, and the thing tipped, and I smacked hit my head. It was right as I was moving in my new house. It's literally all on video.
Man, I mean, when I hit it,
it's a cool.
I just got home from paying off a speeding ticket. So,
It's a cool experience.
On 9/11. So, I mean, I'm never gonna forget the day that I did it. So.
No, I mean, look, it's certainly one of the things. Like, I would still say it's one of my more like prized possessions.
Yeah.
It's got no monetary value to anybody, but it's crazy. Like, I've heard of, like, you know, I'm friends with a lot of these content creators. I'm like I'll go to their house. I'm like, oh, like, do you not have like the YouTube play button? They're like, oh no, like, I don't even know where that thing is. I'm like, dude, you never like displayed anything? They're like, no, like someone's like, I think I gave it away to a fan at a meet and greet or something. And I'm just like they just, which is okay, but I'm definitely sentimental. So like to me, like this kind of stuff is really cool.
That's true, man. And yeah, I mean, this is definitely gonna go in like a frame or something like that. I bought another one to create content with too, so.
You can buy another plaque. That's what I was saying. Yeah. Oh, but I guess because you already have the newest one, that it's just like a duplicate.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Exactly. So yeah, I bought one for the house and one that I could create content with. Probably try to sell it. See what.
Where did you buy it?
They gave me a code and then I was able to.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So, not anyone could just buy a YouTube plaque.
No, I kind of would. I like that one. That's a nicer one than they used to have. I would buy one like that. That's cool.
It's beautiful, man. So
this is really cool.
Man, that was a great episode, though.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time.
Yes, sir. But for everyone watching, man, please make sure you guys go ahead and subscribe. Make sure you guys go listen to the Don't Sleep podcast on every single platform. Blake,
yeah,
a great
it was a pleasure.
friend,
Thank
brother,
you, buddy.
for life,
it's
man.
Always
Thank
fun.
you so much, bro.
Anytime.
And yeah, we hope to see you on future podcasts and future content. So
I'll do it with you anytime.
All right, guys. Thank you all so much. And always remember, don't sleep. We got the heat.